way of getting people to spend currency. But first you've got to get a currency and you've got to get a critical mass so that people even want to spend it.
Right.
And merchants are much more concerned about bottom line than they are about saving the world usually.
Yep.
I'm just being, that's why I started with the time bank strategy, because I thought we all need each other in ways that the market doesn't provide.
In ways that the market doesn't provide?
The market does not value social justice work, community building work, caring work, mentoring work, raising hell work, preserving endangered species work, a few minor things that maybe the planet needs.
Well, because the market's amoral, and the market itself is dependent on the values that the individuals comprising the market have.
Yeah, but we've got a monetary system that values scarcity. And so the things that are abundant and universal are devalued or worthless, which means being a human being is devalued. And being a scarce neurosurgeon or being somebody who can manipulate markets and that's viewed as a scarce skill, that's valued. The reason I wanted another currency was I thought we needed a currency that valued the universals.
Something spiritual. You're describing materialism versus something more spiritual.
Yeah, but even materialism is a tricky word because we have the abundant capacity to produce enough food, clothing, housing for everybody. We just don't have a distributive system. And if we distribute only based on what's wrong with you, not based at all on how you can contribute, then we reinforce a sort of deficit perspective on human beings.
Creating scarcity. We have an economic system that's based on creating artificial scarcity.
Yeah,
the same way with
artificial scarcity, and that manipulates power. So we've got a 1% that now can buy the one thing all of us are born with, is the two things are time and the vote. And now our time is now valued at market value, which means that minimum wage has its own issues. And our vote now has been basically bought by folks who can buy the politicians the time they need to campaign.
So what it sounds like to me is that the monetary system that we have currently doesn't have any intrinsic moral standard, and if we create a currency that kind of instigates that standard within its users, then we're supporting people to have that level of interaction with one another.
Right. I mean, if I came to you with $100 million, you wouldn't know how I got it, but you'd say I can use some of that. And so the whole question of how you earned it and what you did, and how that builds a track record, that's not part of our monetary system. So our chief monetary system and the people who control power are people who are manufacturing digits in cyberspace. That's what they're producing.
Right.
Now, I can't eat digits in cyberspace, but that's what buys the political process. So if that's what productivity is, then I got a problem with that definition of productivity.
Right.
May I ask you a question, if I may? Okay, would you say that the United States has a capitalist system, or would you call it a hybrid type system?
Well, I saw in Russia money having the same when it was supposedly communist. I think we've built into the DNA of money a corrosive force that says how you got it is more important than is not important. Having it is best power, and power is about scarcity and control of others. And I think we need a currency that says being the best human being you can, whether you're a 5-year-old or an 80-year-old, is the most important thing. And so, yeah, we've got a mixed system here, but I see the same issues happening in so-called mixed systems like England and Sweden, and I see politicians getting bought and corrupted. So I think we've built into money a DNA that invariably has some good things. It broke down feudalism. It's what built the middle class. It's what was behind the women's movement and market opportunity and equality. So money breaks down barriers, but it also has social costs that we don't deal with.
Well, I'm sure you're familiar with the Communist Manifesto. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, the fifth plank of the Communist Manifesto is a central bank. And in 1913, we adopted the fifth plank of the Communist Manifesto with the Federal Reserve, and the fourth plank of the Communist Manifesto, a progressive income tax, we adopted that, along with the inheritance or death tax confiscation of wealth. So I would say that, you know, we stopped being a true capitalist free enterprise system a long time ago. And if we got rid of the Federal Reserve, which is the fifth plank of the Communist Manifesto, then we wouldn't have to pay interest on money, the money that the Federal Reserve prints, and allowed the Congress to issue the currency instead. Would that be more favorable to you?
Well, I think, is it North Dakota has a state bank?
Yes.
Well, I think I like that system. I think we'd be much better off if the power to print money and validate money was publicly owned and not simply the possession of a private profit-making industry.
Or
also a monopoly on it. So I'm not sure that private is as destructive as a private monopoly or that the Federal Reserve has. So, because the local currencies, for some reason, it's such a difficult thing to get people to recognize that currency itself is not something the government alone has more knowledge than we do. This idea that, you know, smart suits, basically they can control the economy. They know how to, like, what economic development is and all these different big words and terms, but truthfully, like, a currency is any kind of exchange. And when we have the idea of a monopoly on currency, that's when I think more problems arise.
Well, I mean, we have more faith in credit unions than we do in, say, local banks in terms of how they use money and how they, to whom they'll give loans. We have a whole restrictionist piece now that minorities and women and others can't get loans they need to, even with small businesses. The banks are sitting on money because the chief way you make money is making money on money. And I think that we need to figure out a way that we can begin to promote authentic economic activity and authentic capital investment in creating new productive capacity. We're not doing that.
I have a question. Obviously, I mean, a time-based economy is fine, but there is a capital investment is needed for, like, a lot of things, for production, for factories, for a plumber to have, you know, the tools. So he has to spend money in order to, you know, get the tools in order to be a plumber. Now, obviously, Marx. I read Marx. I read Capital Volume 1. Didn't read all of it, Volume 2. Volume 1 was pretty dense. But and he says that, you know, what's wrong with the system is that, you know, the position that's capitals play in our economy allows, or in a purely capitalist economy, allows for the exploitation of workers and of labor by people with capital, so they can bid down the price of pure labor. But you do need to have some remuneration for capital investment, because if I work an hour to get a labor dollar and then I put that labor dollar to buy tools, but then I'm not remunerated for that, how would you compensate capital investment or investment in the things that allow for productivity in a time-based economy?
Well, I'm not urging that time currency replace money. Money does very well in managing investment and scarcity and the creation of capital. What I am saying is that money does very poorly in promoting sharing, caring, collaboration, and altruism. And that we needed a complementary medium of exchange, and that we're seriously out of balance. It's not a statement that says that we should do away with money. It's a statement. It's a statement about how do we get back to some kind of balance. And when 1% have more than the 99%, I think we're seriously out of balance.
Let me ask another question. So from what a little bit of what I've heard you talk about, it seems like you advocate a greater decentralization away from big banks, away from the Federal Reserve, and more towards a local community-based type of currency that isn't subject to fluctuations from a cabal of international bankers and speculators like people like George Soros that drive down the currencies of third world countries in order to buy their assets for pennies on a dollar once their currency collapses. So would you say that would be something that you would be in favor of?
Well, I'm certainly in favor of strengthening local institutions and local economic systems. But to the best of my knowledge, we're now becoming aware with global warming that we've got a planet to worry about, and that we can't, and that we're not, and that nothing local is wholly independent, and that we need to understand that we are interdependent. The internet has taught us that. I think the aging phenomenon we see worldwide is teaching us that, and I would hope that we're learning how to balance local growth, local sustainability linked to global sustainability. So I don't think it's either or. I think we've got to figure out ways to make both work.
Do you know who developed the carbon credit trading scheme or process to where the money is transferred and to exchange carbon credits? Do you know who invented? It was Kenneth Lay of Enron, Bush's buddy Kenny Boy. So does that speak volumes to you about the legitimacy of the global warming hoax, some people would call it?
I don't think that global warming is a hoax.
But you trust Kenneth Lay from Enron to come up with the carbon credit trading scheme?
I will look at any idea on its merits, regardless of its source. Okay.
Well, you have more faith than I do, sir.
Well, I think that if we create the kinds of feedback loops that democracy calls for, you can hold them in check. What happens is when those feedback loops are missing, then we're at the mercy of very unscrupulous people. And the unscrupulous people come with all kinds of ideological frameworks. The reason I went to time banking is I think there's good in every human being, and I think we need to call on the best in all of us. And I really believe that. And I've spent my life living that.
I was just going to say that I think that your question is sort of implying that Kenneth Lay has some sort of role in the science that has demonstrated that climate change is an anthropogenic phenomenon. But I mean, he's someone who's trying to make money, and there is money to be made in carbon markets. And I think that you should be wary of conflating Kenneth Lay's role in creating carbon credits with the science. It's completely divorced from Kenneth Lay anyway, in terms of determining the anthropogenic CO2 effects on global climatic systems.
Yeah, but Kenneth Lay's participation in it is crucial because most of the big corporations, GE, all the big corporations are on board for global warming because that means that they can charge higher prices with impunity for their energy.
I'm going to look at it more.
Well, I mean, I don't think that there's a question that corporations are eager in putting extra costs onto consumers, and if a carbon credit were in place, I could see that happening. But I mean, I don't want to get into that because I don't have enough expertise. But I was just suggesting that science and Kenneth Lay's interests are not one and the same thing, and so that I think that by applying the Kenneth Lay situation to the reality of climate change is sort of making it a murky issue when it doesn't seem to be based on multiple sources, including independent corroboration.
Yeah, but to an outside observer, it looks like the whole purpose, the raison d'etre, is to basically make money for the banks and the big global corporations, which is what will happen with the climate. If the climate change hoax, in my opinion, is instituted worldwide, that's all. They get people.
Climate change. The animals are moving up. You're saying, is it due to all to CO2? The animals are, the plants are like flowering it earlier and earlier. So it's not it's not that climate change isn't happening. It's definitely happening, but is it due to CO2 primarily?
Of
So
course.
it's not that the animals don't know about this ideological debate going on. They're migrating earlier and earlier. They're doing the plants are blooming earlier and earlier. So it's due to is it primarily just due to CO2, or are there other factors?
Well, what brought us out of the last ice age 12,000 years ago? It wasn't SUVs, and of course we live on a dynamic planet where of course things always